Explosions broke in the sky. All that I needed was the one thing I couldn't find, and you were there at the turn, waiting to let me know. We're building it up to break it back down. We're building it up to burn it down. We can't wait to burn it to the ground. The colors conflicted as the flames climb into the clouds. I wanted to face this, but couldn't stop from tearing it down. And you were there at the turn, caught in the burning glow. And I was there at the turn, waiting to let you know. We're building it up to break it back down. We're building it up to burn it down. You can't. Welcome in. Welcome to the Roots Rundown. Today is May 8th, 2026. I am your host for today's Roots Rundown, Payron Baxter. Thank y'all for taking some time on your Friday to just sit and talk with us, because honestly, folks, it's been a couple days since we've been on the air. Nothing bad's happened. It's just had some errands to do on Tuesday. Had a sick kid, and then yesterday I had a stomach bug. So I'm back. So life happens. I just want to make sure that we understand that we're all people. We all have to put one in front of the other, and we have to do what's best for our own interest to make sure that we can survive in this moment. But thank y'all for coming in on this Friday and spending some time. If you're watching this later, welcome to you on whatever day you're watching this, in whatever time zone, whichever place. I hope you're safe and taken care of. Before we get started, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the Radical Roots podcast and platform. We are always trying to join and have more people join the crew and join the Roots heads. I think that's what we agreed on, to become a Roots head. So if you could please share the platform, the Radical Roots platform, and the Roots Rundown. My words, I can't say words today. The Roots Rundown and Radical Roots podcast platform. Say that 5 times fast. If you could share it, again, that's how we build our base and how we make sure that folks are coming into the conversation, to this classroom, that we can educate each other, right? It's not just a one way where you come here and you hear from Payron and Ram. We hear from you too. You change our perspectives, things that we didn't think about. We put those comments up on the screen. We talk about them, right? So if you can, please get some more people to join, because in this moment, they want us to feel isolated. They want us to feel like there's no place for us to turn besides the corporatized entertainment, mainstream mass media. And there's plenty of opportunities and plenty of places where folks who have experience, folks who have the scholarship, folks who have the know-how, folks who have the care and compassion to tell you the truth, and Radical Roots platforms and podcasts like the Roots Rundown are those places for you. So please, if you could come and or please tell people to come and join our show and join our community, that'd be great. And of course, I see there is the QR code here. Please make sure that you scan the QR code. If you guys could, someone's already done that. I appreciate that. Those a couple dollars, those some brothers, a couple dollars is how we, keep this platform going, and because it's not free. So if you guys could, we really appreciate it. And of course, if not, just share the show. It goes a long way. All right, let me get this off screen. Folks, as we come into today's episode, I don't know how y'all feel, or what goes in your minds week after week or day after day. But in this administration, in this kind of a tornado of diarrhea that we're all living in, honestly, I just have to take a breath and just say, "What the fuck?" I just have to breathe and be like, "What the fuck, man? Are we okay? Is everything okay?" And I know overall we'll all be okay. And I say all, I mean the majority of people will be able to be okay. But it just feels like there's just a lot coming at us. And as I'm trying to put these shows together, I'm thinking about, okay, what is the some of the things that have happened the past day, and sometimes that gets usurped by what happened the past minute. So it's just been a lot. As I meant to come on to, and we are going to talk about what's going on in Tennessee, and how they're redrawing maps to basically disenfranchise Black people in the most egregious of ways. But as I was getting the show prepared, I heard the news that Virginia. I'm sure y'all remember a few weeks ago when Virginia had their elections. They had on the ballots that they could vote to redraw their maps and redistrict to combat some of the Republican overreach in the Republican legislatures. That was stricken down this morning by the Virginia Supreme Court from a 4-3 decision. I don't know, like that. I mean, there's something so anti-democratic to say the people of the polity of the Commonwealth of Virginia came together, and in a very narrow margin, I think it was 51% to 49%, said that we would like to redraw these maps. So they listened to the people. It went through a process. They went through a get it on the ballot process. They went through a campaign process. They went through a political education process. They went through misinformation and disinformation from the Republicans, where they're putting out flyers with like John Lewis and the Civil Rights Act saying vote, the opposite on this bill, basically trying to get people to not pass this. And that got stricken down this morning. And a lot of times on this show, I know that I may sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but I say something like, white folks ain't mad enough. And I know that that may irritate people when they hear me say that, when it's like, okay, Payron, but can we just we're beating up on people and we're doing this. And it's like I don't think that's true. And I think we have to kind of get past that. As I talked about femicide and family annihilators and misogyny, we know that's a man problem, right? Misogyny and patriarchy, that's for men to fix, is for men to realize. It is not incumbent upon, women to teach me that. And if a woman does teach me that, it's not then on me to say, "Oh, I think you're wrong. I think you're beating up on men." So we got to be real. Oh, my contrast is so high right now. So we got to be real that this is a white people problem to fix, um, because that's who's doing it. That's who's doing it. That's who's in favor of it. And we're gonna get into that more in the show. But I honestly, I'm just kind of like, what the fuck? What the fuck? After this week, and I hope you're all doing all right. But as we get into it, there was a story that kind of captured, I'll say at least the black, the black, dang, I didn't think of the video down. The black conversation online, where there was a video that was going viral of, I believe there were some kids in a high school, and they were getting asked to read a sentence, and it seemed like the kids just couldn't get the words out their mouths, right? And or they just couldn't read the words. They didn't understand the words they were reading. And it became this whole viral moment. Let me see if I got the video here. Here we go. So here's the video here.
The end score for me.
She wore a suit, clothes that were. Who's this for? Extraordinary, but somewhat Gertrude?
No, explain what that means.
I don't know.
She wore a sahalat of clothes that were extraordinary, whatever, bro, but somewhat gooch.
What does that mean?
She wore a lot. Wait, she wore.
All right, so you guys kind of get the overall vibe of the video. It's the same sentence. So the sentence here I read here is, she wore a silhouette of clothes that were extraordinary but somewhat gauche. And the words the students couldn't really get was silhouette, extraordinary, and gauche. Now, silhouette depends on where you're from. If that's not a common phrase, it's not part of the you know repertoire, the vernacular that people use. It makes sense. It's not in the daily usage of words, right? People say different things, right? And then extraordinary. No, I think I should have got extraordinary. Come on now. But gouache, I don't even know what gouache. I don't know gouache. I'm an avid reader. I don't know what gouache is. And I think this video does two things. I think it allows the conversation to come back up, which comes up probably once every year, that there's a problem with these kids and their ability to read, and it's the problem at home. It starts at home. If the parents just taught their kids to read, the teachers can't do all this, and there's bits and truth of all that. There's bits and truth of all that. But at a certain point, when the United States of America itself, has terrible literacy, at a certain point, we have to stop blaming the children. We have to stop blaming even the parents to a degree. These are systematic or systemic issues, I should say, that are leading to this. I think it's easy for us to say, like, well, it's the parents' fault, right? You should be teaching at home, but I think it leaves out some of the nuanced conversation of what it's like to be a minority in a white supremacist settler colonial project, which America still is. So when I say that, it's that, like, because we have friends that are teachers and they come and they say the same things. These parents need to be teaching, and these parents, they don't know nothing. Well, that's a bigger part of the system, right? Because being a parent doesn't mean you know how to read, right? It just means that you know how to fuck, and you came, she came, or whatever, and then y'all made a baby. That's it. So, but when we're looking at it through that lens of why we're having these disparate outcomes with the children writ large, because there's high schoolers saying that people going into college that they can't read a book, or they've never read a book, or they've only read one book throughout K through 12. They've only read one book. Teachers saying that they can't write one-page paper. So the two things from this video I'm getting is that, one, it makes it look like black people are stupid. It makes it seem like black people inherently are stupid. And it leaves out that socially, black people don't use those words. We're not using silhouette. We're not using gouge. We definitely use extraordinary. But those are socially salient words. Those words mean different things to different places, right? Coming from England, if you spoke English and you then go to Africa and you say these people don't speak my language, they're all stupid. It's kind of a colonial mindset of how we even look at these children, because we're not looking at the conditions that brought their parents into the world, that brought their grandparents into the world, that brought their great grandparents into the world, the conditions that they live within, the meager amount of resources they have, the inability they have to find leadership and mentors that are actually going to give a damn. So what happens is we blame the children. What happens is we say they're too stupid, they're too dumb. Of course, they should know better. They should know better. Why don't they know how to read silhouette? Because we ain't saying silhouette in black areas. Same way we don't put raisins in our potato salad where we're from. But this is why, honestly, things like standardized testing has a history of racism. The IQ has a history of racism and eugenics. It's because in our white bubbles that we've created, we said this is the standard, and the things that we have in our white bubbles is healthcare, food, and education. So then we're going to have these tests to be applied to all the schools, and these schools and the standardized tests that we create, like the SATs, again also based in racism, will have the words that we know. And if you didn't grow up in an area that has access to quality education and books and a robust teaching system and an infrastructure for healthcare and infrastructure for quality food, then guess what? Those kids may not know those things because maybe their parents, their grandparents are raising them, and they're trying to survive. So it's the same sort of an argument that people use when they try to make fun of the descendants of slaves, those whose grandparents came through the transatlantic slave trade. Well, soul food is greasy. Soul food will kill you. You better not ever open your fucking mouth to disparage what sustained black people throughout what could only be considered the worst blight on humanity in human history, which is what over 100 nations came together to say what the transatlantic slave trade was, the worst blight on human history. And only three. Am I back? Uh-oh. Am I back? Sorry, it went out for a second. Am I back? I think I'm back. It happens every episode. For some reason, I just drop out. But yeah, so you have these 3 countries that say that, the worst blight in humanity was not the transatlantic slave trade, and that was Argentina, where the Nazis fled, Israel, which is a ethno state and theocracy that is actively committing a genocide and imperialism, and the United States, which is the OG, well, the second OG next to Britain, but the OG colonizer. So we're looking at, okay, these people that have never they didn't create the presidency, that didn't create any of these lines on the map, that didn't create any of these, the Senate, the General Assembly, the Congress, the presidency. We didn't create any of that, but yet and still, we wouldn't be told that you're the reason why it's not succeeding, even though we created these systems and institutions without your consideration or your humanity being at its center, at its core. So now we have an education system that is only meant for those who are considered human beings, which is white children. So then we create a standardized test of the things that we teach white children with the resources that white children have, with the culture that white people think they have, which European culture, which is what that really means. So we have ways of knowing through indigenous and African and tribal ways. That's not captured in the SAT. That's not captured in the way that Black people communicate, in the way that Latino people communicate. Now, clearly we all can do well on the SAT and all these other things, but I'm just telling you how it's rooted in that. So tie all that back to this initial video where the words were silhouette, extraordinary, and gouache, is that we're trying to prove that the system, and I think it's actually doing what it's supposed to do, is doing what it's supposed to do. It's meant to make Black people feel inferior and less than, rather than saying everybody should have these resources. Everybody should be reading the same books, or not the same books. Everybody should have access to information. Everybody should have access to a fulsome education. Everybody should have access to an ability to have critical thinking that comes from a dogged love of reading. But we have a country that does not. Now, what do I mean by that? Because we're going to stop blaming Black people and Black children for being, subpar. And we're going to start blaming the system. Y'all have probably heard me say these stats before. 54% of US adults read below a 6th grade level. 54%. That means the majority of adults that you come in contact with, or the majority of adults that are existing in this settler colonial project known as the United States of America, read at or below a 6th grade level. That's not too sharp. That's like a Goosebumps book. And barely that. And what happens is these people are more malleable, they're more vulnerable, they're more able to be manipulated by people who have power and influence and social cachet. And that's how they get their votes. What I always say on the show, it's hard for Republicans to go door to door, knock on door to door, say, hey, can we take your money, Mr. Poor Person who lives in a double wide, and go give it to a billionaire? They would be like, no, hell no, you ain't gonna take my money, hell no. And so instead of saying that, they'll say, don't you hate the trans? Don't you hate that there's men playing in girls' sports? Don't you hate that Black Lives Matter are making you feel like that, they need to get some sort of undue privilege? Don't you feel like there's too many brown people in the country not speaking American? That's what they sell them. And then they say, give me your vote. Then they'll say, okay. And then when they get their vote, they do tax cuts for the rich, deregulations on multinational corporations, and they help the powerful concentrate power in their hands. But now we're at a point where, going back to the systems of children, is where do those people, and it's not just Black kids that deal with that, right? Don't forget that it was South Carolina and Black people that sued to get y'all. It was the recently emancipated after the end of the Civil War that sued and was able to get us universal education. So the reason you're white and brown and Black kids can go to school was because of enslaved people or recently enslaved people or the descendants of enslaved people. They don't want any of us educated. So what I've been saying on the show for a long time, they're trying to turn all of us into niggas. They want all of y'all to feel what it's like to be a minority. But the thing is, I embrace it because at the end of the day, that too will fail. Yeah, they're high on their own supply right now. Yeah. But look, the Confederacy fell. These things cannot maintain. The Confederacy lasted 5 Aprils. 5 Aprils is as long as the Confederacy last 4 years. Outcasts had a longer run than the Confederacy. My college career was longer than the Confederacy. Stranger Things has been on the air longer than the Confederacy, but yet we have monuments erected to them as they were this axiomatic good to the world, or as this part of history that we cannot forget. But the rest of us have to forget it. We have to forget slavery, but they get to remember those who want to keep us in chains. So what happens is you get these people that go through these systems, black, brown, white, poor whites especially. They don't know anything. They don't know anything. And then when you're uneducated, you don't care when you lose rights because you're not even educated on your rights. This is why we say, learn your rights, know your rights, know what you're supposed to be doing, know who has authority and who doesn't have authority. And honestly, none of these motherfuckers have authority. Honestly, this settler colonial project has to come to an end. And it's getting worse for people. People are feeling the pinch at the gas pump, at the grocery store. Gabby here. Literally just realized that's why the book is called Across Five Purposes. Exactly. That's where I got that from. That book title. Great job, Gabby. Brought A+ to the student. But yeah, man. So but then, that leads us into the next part of the conversation is, well, what's going to save these students? It's going to take deep investment in a way of thinking and teaching that is not based in Western psychology and Western education practices. Look at the way, and the one thing we hear about is AI. Can we just, the AI will save the students? No, AI will make us dumber. That's what all the data is showing us, that AI will make us dumber. AI will make us have less critical thinking and feel more confident about it. It's almost like AI is like a Dunning-Kruger on steroids, a Dunning-Kruger effect right into your veins, right into the back of your brain on steroids, where I don't have to actually do anything. And a lot of time, the information that AI spits back out at you is wrong. But you feel like you got all these screens up, you're clicking away, and you're getting is put on all this stuff and bullet points, and there's indentation, and there's bold, and there's M dashes and N dashes. You're like, all right, I feel, and then you put it all together, you give it a cursory glance, you're like, okay, it looks decent. Then you send it off and it's shit. So that's not going to save the students either. But when we talk about what other countries are doing with AI, like China, and people want to, oh, China's Communist Party. Well, look, this what we're all dealing with is what capitalism brought us to. If Chinese people are crazy and all that shit, but they have a homeless rate of less than 2%, and they actually invest in their people, and even when we heard things like China steals our intellectual property, it's a very colonial mindset, because yes, to China, it is all goes back to the state, because they are social, they are communist. It's the community. They invest in the people. They will take this information to make sure that everybody can use it, to make sure everybody is aware of this, to make sure everybody is strong. Or in America, everything is proprietary. Everything is isolated. Everything is put specifically for. There's a paywall behind everything. There's a tiered class. There's a hierarchy, but behind information or wealth or access to resources. So even when we say China takes our intellectual property, you are clapping for your capitalist master. It should all go back to this. Students are learning at a young age how to use AI beyond just, make a funny meme, write my paper. They're actually using it in a way that when they're in 3rd and 4th, 5th grade, they're actually leveraging it in their day-to-day beyond just give me a shortcut, because there is still benefit to us coming together. And that's kind of my rant on AI, that like AI wants us to feel like we are the person, that we don't need all these people. We need to be efficient. And that word efficiency always runs a chill up my spine, because if any of you guys have ever read about fascism, that is what fascists always try to tell. That's what demagogues tell people. That's what fascists tell people, is that they are efficient. They are efficient. Because guess what? Democracy itself is not efficient. I got to talk to her. She's got to talk to me. I got to talk to him. He's got to talk to them. They got to talk to Zer, so on and so forth. And it takes a lot of back and forth, and it's not efficient. But guess what? By the time we're all done, everybody's taken care of. Efficiency in the name of productivity is what you get on the let me just Google here. Gate of it's how you get the it's how you get the phrase on the gates of Auschwitz, which was Arbeit macht frei, which I'm sure y'all have seen the pictures of the gates. And if you get, let me see if I get a picture, get an image here. I'm sure y'all have seen this image before. Where it says Arbeit macht frei. These are the gates of Auschwitz. These are the gates that European Jews and Roma and trans people and Afro-Germans were pushed through, and they read those words, Arbeit macht frei, and which stands for work sets you free. Work sets you free. It's almost like history and it's almost like the past and the present are talking to each other. You'll feel better when you're more efficient. You'll feel better when you're doing the work for some boss. The boss might be a Nazi. The boss might be a Confederate general. The boss might be a cotton plantation owner. The boss might be a pimp. The boss might be someone who's going to exploit you. The boss might be Jeff Bezos, who's last week had a worker that died on the in the warehouse floor. They told the rest of the employees to just work around the dead body. But then he was at the Met Gala. Work sets you free. Free, who is free? Free to do what? Free to die? Free to be exploited? Free to be harmed? But it leads us into our next story of when you have people with a manipulated mind and only focus on efficiency and are malleable, you get situations where people don't realize who they're voting for. And I'm saying this in the most hypocritical way, because I know when I'm saying not hypocritical, probably the wrong word. I'm saying this in the most gracious way possible to some of these people, because I know at the end of the day is white supremacy. But here are a couple videos of the news that we got about redistricting after the Supreme Court last week gutted Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. If it plays.
White Mississippi Republicans have decided to redraw their state maps, which would eliminate the only Black member of Congress in their delegation in their old congressional building. This is the same building where Mississippi decided to secede from the Union, and the same building where they passed their constitution after Reconstruction that instituted Jim Crow. This is not their normal congressional building. This is a choice that they are making. They say it's because the normal congressional building is under construction. If it were me and I were a Southern Mississippi Republican and that were true, I would decide to have this vote literally anywhere except in this building. The optics are extremely bad, but they don't care. The Voting Rights Act was overturned last week. I made a piece of content trying to explain to blue city Northerners that white Republicans in the South do not vote against their own interests. You just don't understand their interests. Their interests are racism. That's functionally it. That's the foundation of their interests. This is why they continue to vote against economic policies that would benefit them. And this is just yet another case of that. Their best interest would be to redraw the map, but to do it in a race-neutral place. But they don't want to do that. That's not their best interest to them. To Mississippi white Republicans, their best interest is to do it this way.
Now, this is something I've been saying for a long time, even before I had this show. And it made people mad again. They're like, they don't want, people, don't say that. Don't say that, you know, they are voting against their best interest. We have to keep this narrative. And this narrative doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve us as we're trying to do political education. It doesn't serve the people that we're trying to pull out of this, because we have to understand that it's not just MAGA, it's white supremacy. And for so long, we've heard people say, they're voting against their interest. But as Amanda just said there, what if white supremacy is their interest? What if that's what they want? And I know that's hard for a lot of people to hear, because that's my dad, that's my uncle, that's my neighbor, that's my friends, my boss, that's my postman. It doesn't matter. Instead of you trying to sit down and understand them, you need to be standing with the rest of us and fighting them. And fighting them seems like can seem like or can be like going into those communities, into the white community, and creating friction. Because there's no one else that can fix this. Black people and people of color cannot and will not save white America from itself. So we have these boss hogs down in Mississippi, and I got a clip of what's happening in Tennessee here too. This is some of the most violent shit that we've seen. And it may not seem violent. I get it. It may not seem violent. It may seem very normal. This is from Monty Mater. I played clips of her before. She's fantastic. Follow her on social media. But she's from Tennessee. And here's her take on it. If it plays.
I was there all day today, and this doesn't quite tell the full story. One of the Black Democratic representatives talked about how his dad was the first person in their family to register to vote. Never got a chance to vote, though, because his white landlord found out, evicted the whole family to go live in tent cities, which was common practice in the South. White landowners would use people's homes as a place to live as a way to threaten them away from registering to vote. But in order to have any weight in their district, they would have to live in these tent cities and stay there. I saw civil rights leaders yesterday from 63, 64, 65, people who fought sometimes as teens and young adults that were hosed, arrested, beaten for the right to fairly vote, sit in front of committees that had no intention of listening to them with tears welling up in their eyes, just wanting a fair vote, just wanting a fair shot. Some of those committees were chaired and sat on by known Klan affiliates. And they knew what they were doing. They were splitting up the black vote in Tennessee. They knew exactly what they were doing, because the thing about Memphis is an organic black community. It is not a legislative district. It's not a legislation for heavily gerrymandered states that were forced to create minority-led districts. It's just there. It's just black. And it votes Democrat. And they said repeatedly over the last 2 days, about 7 times to my own hearing, my own ears, oh, we just want to take that last Democratic seat. We're just doing this to take the seat. It's not necessary, but we're doing it to take the seat. And actually, the first order of business was they had to change the Tennessee state constitution because they were breaking the law. It is relatively unheard of to come mid-census and redistrict. 36 out of the 40 times that has happened since 1970, it was done by a court order because of racial discrimination in voting and gerrymandering. But they had to change the state constitution so that they could do that. They walked by smirking at people. They knew what they'd done. But they did something else. I've had this weird feeling brewing up in me for the last couple weeks I couldn't quite identify, and it's called hope. Because these fuckers, these white Christian nationalists, these fake Christians, these racially prejudiced, evil people have played their hands so fast because they think that power is never going to end. But what they've done is they've shown who they are. 77% of Tennessee, the whole state, did not want this redistricting. They have shown exactly who they are. They are eating themselves alive. This will not last. It will crumble. And when it does, and I can't wait, and I will be here fighting for Tennessee when it does, when it crumbles, they will never have the power in the South that they had ever again.
From her lips to God's ears, right? As a non-religious person, but as they say, as the phrase goes. Yeah, she's right on all cases. If the black vote wasn't such a scary thing to white supremacy, they wouldn't be working so hard to kill it. And dare I say, kill it in its crib. We've only been voting for 60 years, 61 years. So it's not like we've been voting since this country has been around. Again, hence me saying we didn't create none of this shit. And from the moment the Voting Rights Act passed, they've been trying to take it away from literally the very next day. In the book I keep here. Ooh, yeah. I talk about it a lot. Clay Cane's book, The Grift. He talks about the change after the Voting Rights Act was signed by LBJ and how immediately the very next day, conservative white men in the South, fuck the Democrats, this whole shit is because we've never dealt with conservative white men in the South. And beyond that, there was a conservative white man up north too. As Malcolm X says, I'm not just worried about the white folks down south, but also the white folks up south. You got down south and up south, as Malcolm X said, because at the end of the day, this country is built on white supremacy, and it's built on the thin fabric that all of us are going to be white. And if we can all be white, some of us might be more violent, some of us might be more tame, but ultimately we'll maintain that this is the hierarchy. And then over the past 70 years, Black people, Latino people, Asian people, Indian people, LGBTQ people, trans people, all these people have been coming out saying, you know what, I deserve to be seen too. Because the thing is, y'all ancestors, the fleeing felons y'all may call the founding fathers, threw tea in the harbor for less. Taxation without representation, right? That was the whole rallying cry of the revolution. You're taxing us for our labor, or from our labor, and instead of that money going back to us, is going to the king. This is what it is. This is what it's always been. And to a degree, we've always been gerrymandering. This country's always been gerrymandering. What do you think? They put it in the Constitution, y'all. 3/5 a person. What does that even mean? 3/5 a person. They had to use the head count from the people they're holding captive against their will, but only the 3/5. So what's 3/5? 3/5 is 60%. So you get 60%. We can use you for your body count, but we're not going to give you your rightful rights and equality as a human being. But we're going to use you. You're going to get that. Your taxation is your labor, right? And your representation is we know what's best for you. That is a very colonial mindset that we know what's best for you. The thing is, I saw it. I should probably pull it up for this, but they did someone did a study. It was Joy Reid. It's Joy Reid. That's what Joy Reid's team. And she pulled up that only she couldn't find a place where a white conservative man, it's always a man, could represent a place that has an overwhelmingly Black population and do it successfully. And across history, they found one place, and it's currently being occupied by a white man. And that's Speaker of the House Mike Johnson's district, where there's like a 50-something% Black percentage, but yet somehow, due to the way that they disenfranchise voters, due to the gerrymandering, due to the voter restrictions, due to the voter suppression, it allows for people like Mike Johnson to surge up and win. Gary Chambers, if y'all don't follow him, he actually talks about this a lot. But the thing is, if you had a Black person or a progressive person who was leading them in their districts, what would they be losing? What would you be losing? If I have Mike Johnson represent me as a Black person, I'm going to lose my right to vote. I'm going to lose my right to have health care. I'm going to lose my right to bodily autonomy. I'm going to lose my right to blah, blah, blah. 3/5. 3/5 a person. Who sits around? What kind of a good country that we love to put our hand over our heart and cry and jets flying over the flag and the blue, red, white, blue jet smoke, writes down in their founding documents that the people that we're holding in bondage against their will, fearful, raping them, killing them, eating them, forcing them to do all of our work, are 3/5 of a person. That's gerrymandering. Yeah, we got these Black people here. We want to get the resources for North Carolina or whatever state, or Florida, or Virginia. We've got these Black people here, but we don't want to give them power. We don't want to give them representation. No. We can represent them better. We know better for them. We want their tax dollars, and with their tax dollars, we'll put that into our. We're going to go grease the palms of our folks, to the Elon Musks, to the CEOs, to the wealth class. And this is what actually was the cause of the civil rights movement. When we think about Brown v. Board of Education, it wasn't just about Black kids needing to go to white schools. It actually started because Black folks said, give us our fucking bread. Give us our monies. Black folks in South Carolina specifically, they had their kids going to a school that was dilapidated, that kids had to walk, I think, 1.5 miles, 2 miles each way to school, while the white school, the segregated, separate but equal, had access to a high quality at the time, efficient school, enough teachers, modern books, and they had buses. And the black parents said, "We want our children to have buses." And the white, leadership said no. So they created a class action lawsuit, which was the beginning semblances of Brown versus Board of Education, because black people said, "We're paying taxes. We wake up every day and pay our taxes to this government. That money needs to be coming back to us, not to our white neighbors across the pond." And what happened was, one of those kids, as they're doing, because they had to cross a river too, these kids, these black kids, as they went to school. And one of the black kids, as they crossed this river on this 1.5 mile, 2 mile walk to school, one of them died in the river. And the parents, they were fed up. They were fed up. But now, as Monty Mater has, you got these Peckerwoods and these heifers up there cheesing, smiling as they take away black representation, as they dilute black representation. But I tell you what, friends, I embrace it. I embrace it, because at the end of the day, that too shall fail. When all you have is institutional control, that means you have no cultural control. Oh, but Joe Rogan, that's fucking, look, that's fine. White people have never been the culture. They have no cultural control, but they're trying to do is say, everybody loves racism. Everybody loves misogyny. Everybody loves sexism. Everybody loves war. Everybody loves killing Muslims. Everybody loves being stupid. Everybody loves the UFC. And the thing is, all of us who rejected that are like, no, because they want to harm us and still be treated politely. They want us, they still want to be liked. This is another example of how conservatism at its heart is still just a narcissistic behavior pattern. It's always the victim and the hero. We're saving you from having illegals vote in your elections. We're taking your rights away, because they're bringing all these illegals in to vote. Right? They're both sides of it. We're saving you from having trans people, or no, say trans people, don't have playing men and girls sports, even though we don't care about trans men, trans boys, because we're just pedophiles. We're the heroes, but we're also the victims because our little girls. But you kill all your little girls. You kill your own children. You start wars that are unnecessary with other countries across the world with black and brown people that you've destabilized. And then you send your children to go die. And then when they die, you're proud that they're dead. And this is why I'm over the gaslighting of the Democratic Party. I'm over it. I put up a post yesterday. I'll play you a clip of it here, of a guy named Jeff. His name is Jeff Pearlman, and he started his career in Tennessee. But I had to tell the truth about my experience. I said, I remember when I was the Dem Party chair during monthly meetings, I would teach political education, because you can't change something if you can't name something. I was told by a fellow board member, which means like the board of who I sat, and I was the chair of the Democratic Party, and we had a board of people. First vice chair, second vice chair, third vice chair, secretary, treasurer. And one of my board members told me, don't say white supremacy. It turns people off. I knew then that my position was nothing more than a tokenized figurehead, and that my county was cooked. In Union County, where I currently live, in the 1960s, 55% of the adult white population was card-carrying members of the Ku Klux Klan. So what does that mean? That means those people are still alive. They're still here. And if not, their children are still here. And what do you think they taught them? They taught them how to live in an egalitarian, equal society? No. So I knew that my position was nothing more than a tokenized figurehead, and that my county was cooked. I realized that they never had any intention to listen to and learn from black people and marginalized people to do something different. And now we have the videos we're seeing from Tennessee. Well, at least people aren't turned off. And this is why black people are like, y'all got it. Y'all got it. You need what, and these are Democrats I'm talking to. So when I talk about the way black people talk about racism, we're not talking about some neo-Nazi swastika on his tattoo on his forehead, Klan robe. We're never around those people. The crazy part is when we're talking about racism, we're talking about being around the more progressive people because we're not around the crazy right wingers. Why would when black people talk about racism, we're not talking about being around Chet. We're talking about being around Bridget and Frank from The Office. But the same way as we talk about patriarchy, when women are talking about patriarchy and misogyny, they're not talking about fucking Andrew Tate. They be talking about their husband. They be talking about their dad, their brother, a guy they know from The Office. So we had to stop getting so defensive when we do occupy these positions of privilege. But that pissed people off. I got a DM. Someone said, "Who was the person?" It doesn't matter who the person was. Well, it does matter. It doesn't matter because you didn't want to listen to me then. So now you want to listen to me. So was I lying then or am I lying now? Or was I telling the truth both times? And you didn't care. That is why you didn't want to do anything different. You didn't want to go into your communities. So I'm starting to tell the truth now. Like, we're at this point, it's like, why? Why are we acting like I need to sit here and take care of the opinions of people that haven't done any of the personal introspection just because I'm a Democrat? Okay, there's racist Democrats. All of us have been indoctrinated into white supremacy. All of us, including your boy. So if I've been indoctrinated, then you've been indoctrinated. And if you can't say that, because once you say that, then you're now responsible to change. Or if you have any sort of leverage with your privilege, it's on you to change those things. Then it's on you. And people don't want to do that shit. So they say, you know what? No, that's too much. It's too divisive. They call me divisive. They call me toxic. They call me non-inclusive. It's easier to do that than to listen. We got some comments here. Let me see here. It's been a little while here. Sorry, folks. I got on the heater. I got Lorena here. I first learned of gerrymandering in college, saw some maps. I laughed because I couldn't believe how ridiculous it was. Well, yeah, I'm right there with you, Lorena. I'm right there with you. Because it is, because white supremacy is ridiculous. Supremacy culture in general is ridiculous. If y'all know I love black people, but I'm not a black supremacist. I'm not like black people are better than other people. We have more of a right to have access to safety. We have more of a right to have access to roles and positions. That's not what I've ever said. What we're saying is we have the right to be protected under the U.S. Constitution as white people do. That's it. That means I'm not getting discriminated against. That means I'm not getting killed unjustly. That means I'm not getting poisoned. I'm not being, forced into low-end jobs. That's what I'm talking about. But when they're saying that, they're saying it their way. So this is, well, those are just two opinions. No, the fuck they're not. And I would get into the Scott Jennings thing today, but we don't have time. But that's a very good example of it. All right, let's see here. What else we got? Some more comments. Gabby. Watching them show their true selves is the best thing that they could have done. Agreed. Too long people have covered up here. Too long people have hidden behind masks. At least now we white folk can see it is what it is and stop pretending. True. But the thing is, Gabby, you are a rarefied minority. You, Lorena, Suzanne, who comes in here, are rarefied. When I say rare, to come here episode after episode and not take it personal. Because I'm not saying white people inherently are, let me take that back. People that believe themselves to be white are inherently bad people. But whiteness itself is a violent social construction. And as long as we hold on to that, and we want to hear, I'm a good white person, that whiteness is still the violent part. Because at most, you're European American. If you're like, yeah, I'm a European American, that would fuck up all these races. Because they don't want to hear that shit. They believe that they started a new country and history started in 1776 and blah, blah, blah. You too are an immigrant. The only people that are not immigrants on the soil are the indigenous and the descendants of enslaved people. Because we didn't have a choice to come here. We're the only people here that didn't ask to be in this motherfucker. The only ones. And I know I keep saying that, but you got to solidify that in people's minds. So that means every law, every statute, every social norm was created without our inclusion. which is why they're against diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because if we start to get the reins of power, we're not going to take anything away from them. We're going to make sure that everybody has access, that no one's going to be harmed. But when they say freedom, they want the freedom to harm you. They want the freedom to harm me. They want the freedom to harm our children. They want the freedom to harm the elderly. They want the freedom to harm people in other countries. They want the freedom to subsidize a genocide and apartheid state. That's the freedom they want. Abraham Lincoln talked about this years ago. He said it was the watch out for the Wolf's Dictionary, where the farmer comes out and he sees the sheep, and the sheep says, free me from the jaws of this wolf. The farmer doesn't, gets the sheep out. But then the wolf says, hold on, you're imposing on my freedom. Now, this is the word freedom. Is it equal for each? You're imposing on my freedom. Lily. It doesn't affect them. So they're truly not interested in shaking up status quo. Agreed. It's all performance. It's all kayfabe. It's all I'm here. You can't get your own demographic together. You can't get your own demographic together. You can't get your own demographic together. So when I see white women trying to lead political movements that doesn't have an intersectional lens, or the main people around them are other white people, I know it's a failed political project. I know it is all kayfabe. I know. Gabby, I grew up in Waxhaw. You did. You're in Charlotte, right? That's cool. Yeah, that's where I live. Can truth evolve? I don't think so. I think there's a difference between truth and facts, right? Maya Angelou once said, you can't let truth get in the way of facts, because a fact is something that is non-negotiable, right? 2 + 2 is 4. That's a fact. But the truth could be, I feel the best way to get to that is actually 3 + 1. I feel the best way to get to 4 is 4 + 0 is the best. That's the truth. That's my truth. I'm speaking my truths. Now, if your truth is, I think math is fucking stupid, and anybody that practices math needs to be taken out to a bar and shot, that's a difference of it. But that's what we've allowed to become, co-equal sides to this coin, and it's not. It's not. Let's see. So I don't know. I get. You got to give me some more on that. What do you mean by that? Can truth evolve? Lorena, again, I had to take apart all my biases and where they came from. It takes critical thinking and hard work. It does. It does. It was hard for me. And I could only imagine what it's like for someone who's, again, this literal country was carved in your image to say that you're always the good person. You're always the righteous one. You're always the hero. And you don't have to think about anything. What your granddad taught you, what your great granddaddy, and with the family lore, that's all you need to know. These people with these crazy books and these music and this ways of knowing and understanding their cultures and religions, that's all evil. It's a very hard thing to come over. So I understand that. This is not me trying to legitimize white supremacy, but I understand. The first story we talked about was the high school kids. Those are all kids in the exact same condition that all of us were in hundreds of years ago. The society that's raising these kids does not have a focus on education. It does not have a focus on investment into their futures. And then we want to blame them when they're in high school and they can't read the word silhouette. It's the parents. Okay, what if that parents working 3-4 jobs? It's hard right now for a lot of Black folks. What if that person, they don't have that high education? Well, they should have it in them. Okay. Are we serious here? Are we serious here? I don't think we are. I think it's easier for us to try to blame people. But yeah, so Jeff, the Jeff video, I'll play a minute of Jeff's video. I thought this was good. You can catch us on my social media. It's kind of a long video, but I'll play a little bit. If it plays.
So I started my career in Nashville as a reporter at the Nashville Tennessean. I love the city of Nashville. I loved my time in Tennessee. But what's happening there right now is so disgraceful, and you really need to understand. It's very, very important to understand what's going on here. Basically, Tennessee State Capitol today, the House approved a new congressional map for the state that took the one Democrat congressional district, which was part of Memphis. And Memphis is a very Black city. The Black population of Memphis is about 65%. And basically, the arch conservative MAGA movement in Tennessee decided to split that up so Donald Trump would have an additional congressional seat. And they weren't hiding it. John Stevens, a representative in Tennessee, a Republican, said this map was drawn to maximize the Republican chances to win non-congressional district seats in the upcoming midterms. They literally fucked up their own state to please Donald Trump. They literally, and not, it is so racist. It's not like a little racist. It is so racist. You're basically saying to black people, you have no voice. You do not matter. Your representation doesn't matter. We're taking that away from you. We're going to have.
Yeah, go check out Jeff's video. It's on my page, or follow him, Jeff Pearlman. Taxation without representation. All these patriots, all these people that want to tell you that they're for America, you're for your own fellow citizens being disenfranchised because you don't like their position. And if black people were so inferior and incapable and stupid and unhuman, why would you need to take resources away? Why would you need to put obstacles in their way? Why would you need to take away the if we were so terrible, we would fail on our own. We wouldn't need that. We wouldn't need you to take away things. We wouldn't need you to make sure that we live in separate areas or in Cancer Alley. You wouldn't need to make sure that we were constantly dehumanized in the media. You would need to make sure that, whenever we're murdered, that the people that murder us from outside the community who are vigilantes, police officers, or military are always exonerated and embraced. Not just let go, but exonerated and held up and lionized. You wouldn't need all that. So this is nakedly racist. And then, so he's talking about for Tennessee. But here's a tweet from Kasim Rashid. He's an attorney from Illinois. But he says, breaking the Virginia Supreme Court throws out redistricting. He's talking about Virginia here. So to be sure, the U.S. Supreme Court says red states can ignore the will of the people and gerrymander their districts 9-0 in favor of MAGA Republicans. The Virginia Supreme Court says blue states cannot put the vote to the will of the people and follow through on the people's vote to redistrict. Once again, gerrymandering that centers white people is a-okay, but gerrymandering that centers a broad base of voters is not. Absurd. And that's what it is. That's what it is. So, Lorena, I'm not trying to jump over your comment here, but I see your comment here. You said many women were brought against their will. It's true, but they were still considered white. They were still considered human. Even though they didn't have access to the ballot, they didn't have access to autonomy. I don't think it's any stretch of the imagination to understand that white women have been what has been the control against how everyone else is viewed, especially women of color and black women. And on top of that, a quote that I heard after the 2024 election that stuck with me to this day, after November 5th, 2024, has just been in my brain, is that white women are our biggest traitors. And that's just the goddamn truth. So we can't get like, well, it's not this. And it's like, well, yeah, that's who betrays us, because white male patriarchal Christianity nationalism does not help white women either. But unfortunately, the majority of white women who do vote, of that small percentage who do vote, choose to give their rights away to the patriarch. And there's such a large swath of white women comparatively to black women, comparatively to Latino women, comparatively to Asian women, comparatively to Arab women. But white women, such a large swath. And if the majority of them vote to take our rights away, even if the majority of black women vote, even if it was 100% of black women, not even 92%, that couldn't usurp the percentage of white women that voted for Donald Trump. So if we can get even just white women to turn away, but they too are invested into white male patriarchy and hegemony. So I hear you on that. And the book, as you see here, remember Payron, we were property. But then also I remember the actual book here. The title of it is They Were Her Property. So as much as white women property, if that property can own property, I don't know how much property that is, because don't forget, white women were able to own other people. So I've never heard of property owning property. So these are the nuances we have to push through. You have to understand, even in that second class tier, that's still a tier above most indigenous people and most trafficked Africans who are held captive against their will. But I feel you. I feel you on that. I feel you. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I have one more video. Oh, but and the last thing I got on this gerrymandering stuff, they're hiding behind the phraseology of this is partisan gerrymandering. Partisan gerrymandering is a-okay. Partisan gerrymandering is it's all good. It's not racial gerrymandering. Until you figure out, well, who votes for the Republican Party? The Republican Party is damn near a 90% white party. Overwhelmingly male. Overwhelmingly white and male. White first, male second. The majority of white men, who is the largest demographic in this country, votes for the Republican Party. I think only 37% of white men, or maybe 40% of white men, vote for the Democratic Party. And only, I think, and then 45% of white women vote for the Democratic. I got the stats on my phone. But this is what it is. So when are y'all going to stop doing this and fight for our common humanity? At a certain point, even when you're not actively engaging within it, you're benefiting from it. You're benefiting from systems that you don't have to worry about getting a wrong diagnosis from a doctor. You're not worried about getting shot by police. You're not worried about getting trailed in every single store you go into. That's what we're talking about. You're not worried about that when you walk into a job interview, you're like, I hope these motherfuckers ain't racist. That's what we're talking about. They're not taking your application and throwing it into the bin based on your skin color. That's what we're talking about. But yeah, partisan gerrymandering is racial gerrymandering. Because if predominantly only white people, or the overwhelming majority of white people, again, that's the largest swath of our electorate, is the white vote. It is 71% of the electorate. So to put it in your minds, think of a dollar, and there's 100 pennies in that dollar, right? 71 of those pennies is the white vote. Now, that's not all Republican. That goes from far right Donald Trump, Nick Fuentes supporters, all the way to, Bernie Sanders, right? Or someone who's on super far left, who's like, I mean, we have to burn down the capitalist Marxists in the system, but we burn it all down for the proletariat. That is the white vote. 71 of those pennies. Of that 71 of those pennies, almost 60% of those pennies voted for Donald Trump. That's how big the white vote is. So black people are like, okay, well, what more y'all want from us? We showed up. We got A's and B's, 92%, 80%, and now we're all in this together. Whoa. What more do you want from us? We've been hosed. We've had dogs sicked on us. We've had the redlining. We've had the Tuskegee experiments. We've had the MOVE bombings. We've had people lynched. We've had thousands of people that have unmarked graves. We got all. Now what? To get your ticket to the No King's Day or to the May Day parades or whatever you are doing to resist, how many times did someone have to put out a burnt cigarette on your skin? How many counters did you sit at? How many counters did you have to sit at where someone poured milk on your head and punched you in the back of the head? How many attack dogs had to bite you to get you to understand that you are not a person? Never. So we're at this point where black folks are like, y'all got it. It is on y'all to fix. We've given y'all the playbook. We've given you the resources, and you can't do it without us. But yet, I keep being told that someone has a better idea. And if we're just nicer and kinder, all this turns around. I don't know. Last story I got here for y'all is there's a podcast that I thought was a decent podcast. I didn't know. I haven't really listened to a whole episode. But it's called We the Fifth. And when I first saw it online on Instagram, they seemed like some decent guys, moderate-ish. There's a black guy, kind of a quirky white guy, and then it's kind of some more conservative white man who I've seen in places who is quite odious to me. And they're talking about these topics, political topics. They had a guest on, David French. you guys don't know who David French is, he was a writer for the New York Times. He is an attorney, and he's been a lifelong conservative. He would show up on like your CNNs and Morning Joes. They think like 15, 20 years ago, right? He was that type of conservative. Since Trump, he's seen the light, blah, blah. But they've had him on, and he told the story about how he understands racism now because he adopted this child from Ethiopia, and then when she went to school in his probably all white area in this good school, she was called the N-word, and I didn't understand racism until now. I didn't get it until now. And Phoebe Robinson, who he obviously played her videos on the show multiple times, where she's like, "Bitch, what's going on with you, bitch?" Man. She responded to them, and you would think that they would have picked up on that moment that David French was wrong. That all the people responding to that video was beyond Phoebe, because a lot of people responded to beyond Phoebe, but they chose Phoebe, I think, because she's screaming, but it's a thing of righteous rage. But all her videos are like that if you just watch her page. And they're trying to make it seem like it's her anger that is misplaced. And he was just saving this child from Ethiopia. And they missed the mark again. And these are the type of people who I find in my circles who think that they're well-meaning. But like, this video really infuriated me because they're attacking Phoebe. One, you don't know her content. And two, y'all missed the point twice. If it plays.
Did an episode with David French, and it provoked some passion.
Fuck you, stupid bitch!
I haven't watched this. I was told about it.
Okay.
And this is a reaction video.
I have absolutely changed in my perception of the severity, lingering severity of race problems in this country. We adopted a child from Ethiopia. This might sound super naive, but when we adopted our youngest daughter, I did not have in my mind that she was going to come to my community and have a substantially different experience as a child than my two older kids. And she said a truck full of guys was screaming the N-word at us and drove straight for us, and they just swerved away at the very last second.
If you don't drop the pin to your location so I can have CPS come through and scoop up that Ethiopian child and get her the out your goddamn get out house, who the else is black in your goddamn neighborhood? Exactly, because your motherfucking racists don't want to be around nobody of color, bitch. You sent her to a very white school so she can endure goddamn trauma? White people have got to stop doing this goofy ass shit when you take your ass overseas to extract an African child because y'all like the black kids here, you don't want to fuck with us black people here, and bring them over here as some like trinket, some decorative item to show that you are what, one of the good whites, that you're marked safe, bitch. On some, you was kind, you was smart, you was important. You ain't none of those things, bitch. You a goofy ass motherfucking cunt.
This obnoxious nonsense.
It's this performative nonsense.
She's angry that he adopted a child, and
no, she's not angry that he adopted a child. She is calling out how conservatives only seem to understand systemic problems when that systemic problem lightly brushes up against them. Because this is even happening to him. This is happening to his adopted Ethiopian child, which I cannot believe that he has any level of respect for. To put her in a segregated, white, affluent, middle-class, Southern school. And you got this fucking Negro, I don't know his fucking name. He's sitting here with this diarrhea face, like, is this correct? Is this the right thing? Nigga, you know she's talking about the hypocrisy of it all. And on top of that, he's fitting into this narrative that David French is some saving colonial force, saving her from her squalor of Ethiopia, which America helped destabilize.
sent her to a quality school.
So the two arguments, as far as I can make them out, because it is mostly unintelligible.
Adopt within your race.
Adopt within your race.
It's unintelligible. She's a professional comedian and has been so for over 2 decades. I slur my words a lot because I have downstream issues from my alcoholism years ago. So I'm working on that as I'm trying to get on the air. She is very clear in what she's saying. It's not unintelligible. She's yelling. She's cursing. So the fuck what? You don't know what the fuck? Are you too stupid? Is your big smart white brain not smart enough to understand what the fuck she's saying? Or is it because she's cursing and you don't like it and you feel uncomfortable? And it's just like what I was saying about me, the Democratic Party, where people want to feel like they need to feel comfortable. And yes, when white people adopt black children in America, it is a violent act. I know it's hard for white people to understand. It's a violent act. And for him saying, so inside your race, in a country that's built on anti-black racism, in a country that's built on misogynoir, in a country that's built on lynchings and genocide and enslavement, and David French was on the side of the people that like that shit. Yeah, smug white guy, he's wrong.
Race. And the other thing is that she goes to a school that is not black enough.
Yeah.
Because it's a segregation argument. Like, even if you have a kid who's adopted from Africa, they should go to a place where there are other black people.
But who made it that way? Who made it that it's unsafe for black people to be in all white areas?
Just like them who are not from?
My bad. Every time. Who made it that way, smug white man? Who made it that way that it is unsafe for black people to be in all white spaces? Black people made it that way? Or is it Phoebe who cares about black people and especially black women, to know what it's like to be the only black person in the room? He's probably never been the only white guy in a room in his entire life. He's probably in his 50s. He has probably never been the only white man in a room full of black people in his entire life without being the authority, without being the one he's the special guest. He's the one we're gonna give him a special award. We're gonna pat him on the back. He's never been in an actual social situation where he has to go take the mic and talk to the people. He's probably never been like that in his entire life. Never. And now he's befuddled, beside his fucking self.
Ethiopia. Yeah. It's a great flattening of everybody. Like, all races are the same, no matter where they come from.
Race is a made up fucking social construct created by Europeans to compartmentalize people, to treat them less than human. Black people didn't invent that. We have taken the social construct, the way that we are viewed from other people, black, and then reaffirm that to say black is beautiful, black pride, because blackness was supposed to be evil, stupid, licentious, violent, super sexual, all these things, slaves. And we reappropriate it, and we now embrace black. Y'all invented that. We didn't invent that shit. Even when it comes to the concept of like Latino is not a race. You could be a white Latino like Marco Rubio. You could be a black Latino like Tego Calderon. You can be an Asian Latino. All of these things exist, but when you don't fucking know no fucking better, and you worked at some press years ago, you got all this money, and now you can start this really nice podcast, you can jump on. God, why didn't Trump's tariff men's podcast mics? Tariff the podcast mics now.
She would be happier if the child was living in squalor in some orphanage in Ethiopia, because then she wouldn't be a trinket, Camille, and the trinket here.
There are literal children in the United States of fucking America that are black that need to be adopted. There are I looked it up. There are 400,000 kids in the adoption program, in the orphanage program right now. 400,000. You tell me David French, attorney, white shoe lawyer from the conservative upper crust that has ran campaigns for presidents and has been around all these powerful people all these years, the best place he could help people who are downtrodden isn't in his home state of Tennessee. He couldn't go to Memphis and find folks who are in squalor, as they like to say, and adopt one of their people, one of their kids. You got to go to Ethiopia so you can get a pat on your back to be the OG colonizer. And then you get these lunchable faces, and I love that, Lorena, correct. Not punchable, no. He has a lunchable face. Because have you ever seen the pizza that you get in a lunchable? It's kind of like soft and dilly with the little holes in it. He has a lunchable face, a lunchable pizza face. And then you end up with this.
In the other direction is to make somebody's child a political football.
Yes.
When somebody is saying in a very honest way, I didn't see it, I didn't experience it.
He's come around to the perspective that you ostensibly hold, and you are villainizing him for it.
The thing that David French...
He's come to the perspective that you ostensibly hold, and now you're villainizing him for it. Shut the fuck up. I am so sick and tired of Negroes upholding white supremacy to make their white bros feel comfortable. David French is a fucking racist. David French says that he learned racism. He has to unlearn that singular capacity. Why don't you want to unlearn everything? That's a question y'all should have asked David French. David, you said you want to unlearn racism now that your Ethiopian adopted daughter has experienced racism. Why don't you want to unlearn everything? Why aren't you in a position where you're like, I need to challenge the way I think about, humanity, the way I think about women, the way I think about gay people, the way I think about black people, the way I think about white people. I need to read some more, but I'm an attorney. But that's just me knowing the rules of this settler colonial project, not really understanding anything beyond that. It's just I know the rules better than anybody. But like, look at this fucker. He thinks he's cooking. He thinks he's on that fucking like I am on some Thomas Jefferson in France pontificating, and I'm just really trying to bring it together. Why is this girl so stupid? Why does she get how good of a man David French is by going to Ethiopia and getting one of these blackies and bringing them back? Bringing them back. I can't find it word for word. Maybe. What is this about? Let me scroll up here. I don't know what y'all talking about. I don't know. Oh, is it the quote that racism, which is really white supremacy culture, has long hid behind the skirts of white women? Yes, that was written by the Tulsa Tribune in 1921 after the massacre of Black Wall Street in the newspaper. Someone was quoted saying that in the newspaper, that racism has long hid behind the skirts of white women. So as we talk about who is impoverished, that was a quote from 1921. Nothing has changed since 1921. White women have long hid behind the skirt. Racism has long hid behind the skirt of white women. That's what it said in the newspaper. And that's what it is. I'm not sure that's the quote. But that's the quote that I know me and Lily have talked about in the past before. But yeah, this guy
did as a parent is really noble. And to be shouted down just for that.
He's so noble, just like the pioneers, the pilgrims. They were all so noble. They weren't ignoble. They were just noble.
This is the perennial problem with politics, especially as a consumption item.
Yeah.
If you're consuming politics in this way, you are just trying to organize your hatreds. You're like, I found the bad people and I'm going to like spit out them and out-compete for being the one who can be loudest about the bad person. It is rotting your soul. She's screaming into a camera about a guy who adopted an Ethiopian and brought her into his loving home.
My God. What a fucking stupid take. It showed they didn't do any of the legwork. They didn't just scroll one more video to see, oh, that's how her previous video was, or then how her previous video was before that, or how her previous video was before that. And then they didn't deal with any of the content of what she was addressing. The hypocrisy of these white men who all of a sudden learn racism from their fellow whites, because no one else was calling this Ethiopian girl the N-word besides white kids. White children in a truck, I guess. Some tell me they probably had MAGA stickers on them. And he brought her into that situation. And you want a black woman to hear this. You want black people to hear this and say, well, he's the good guy of the situation, actually. He's actually the good guy. What? Excuse me. Ooh, it's that type of shit, man. That type of shit. So, yeah, not much. Folks, we are in a war. They're not fucking around. They're coming for our voting rights. But what I want to tell you and have a question is, why would they stop there? Why would they stop with taking away the voting rights of black people? They want to take away the whole civil rights. The whole civil rights era. They want to take away the 19th. They want to take away the 19th Amendment. This is all the stuff they've been saying. This is all the stuff they've been saying. So why would they stop here? And the thing is, We're unwilling to put pressure on everyday Republicans. We're so quick to say, this is Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. But when we say Republicans, it only means like the elected officials. It's never the voters. But when we say Democrats, it's always the voters and never the elected officials. Isn't that crazy? When you think about it, like, why is it only the voters when it comes to Democrats? When you say Democrats and the Democrats are going crazy, when the media says it, not us as people, but when the media says the Democrats are going crazy, what they mean is the voting base wants too much. The media, who is a part of the status quo, they are the propaganda arm of the empire. All of our mainstream media, MSN, MS Now, CNN, Fox News, they're all part of the same media ecosystem, which means they're meant to legitimize the empire. You got your more progressive, you got your more liberal, more conservative, but ultimately, all of them will always say what America's doing is correct. This is why they're caught in these quagmires and quandaries on the news when they're like, well, I mean, I guess technically Iran, even though our intelligence said they weren't doing that, but Trump says this, even though Trump's a liar, he lied 30,000 times. He lied to his people about a stolen election, but he has to be telling the truth about this. He lied about this, but he has to be telling the truth about that. He stole classified documents and put them in his basement in Mar-a-Lago, but he has to be telling the truth about this. Our media does that. And what I'm trying to do on this show is to wake us all up to understand that this project, known as the United States of America, this settler colonial project, is meant to conserve the stolen goods in the hands of the thieves. That's the whole point of this project. And if you want to come over here from another country and that's the deal, is you treat these niggas like shit and you believe in this, and you run headlong for some billionaire, and you may not make it, but your kids can make it. But that's the whole allure. The Constitution is not a rendition of our rights. It is a investment contract. It is an investment contract. And folks don't want to, they think it's a brown, what is an American? Am I an American? Was James Baldwin American? Or the only American is Donald Trump and John Wayne and Pete Hegseth? Is RuPaul an American? Is, T.S. Madison, a black trans woman, is that an American? I'm proud to be. What is an American? Who is an American? Why is an American? These are the questions that I want you all to be thinking about as we go into this weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, to my mother, to my wife, to all the mothers out there that, are great moms. And if, again, as we talk about going into matriarchy, we need y'all. Not in this, like, we need y'all to do the work, the emotional and physical labor, but we need each other in this moment. I just want to say thank you all to birthing us, because the human race would not exist without mothers. And mothers could be anything. There could be trans mothers. There could be black mothers. There's all types of mothers. There's mothers that are disabled. Yes, please. I appreciate you all. And but today's, wait, I should know how to do this. Oh, what is that? Yes, happy Mother's Day. Thank you. Yes, Lorena. Happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. And hopefully, I don't know if they said this year that I didn't realize for Mother's Day. Did y'all know this? That the longest day for restaurant waits is Mother's Day. The longest day for waiting at a restaurant is Mother's Day, and the worst service is recorded on Mother's Day. I don't think it's because people want to be mean. I think it's just because it's so busy. So we plan on doing something at the house. We usually do something at the house, and we will do that this year as well. So please take care of your mothers. If you're a mother, please get some rest on Sunday. Y'all do way too damn much, and we are all thankful for being born. And even if you're not thankful for being born, you can still be kind to somebody, and that means something. That means something. Let's be nice to each other. But thank you all for tuning into the Radical Roots Rundown podcast. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Here's the QR code just for y'all who want to be a little froggy. Put it up for 10 seconds as the algorithm says to do. If you guys can scan that and throw us a couple bucks, it goes a long way. Find us on all platforms: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. And it is how we, of course, trying to continue to build. And we can only do that with your help. So please, if y'all could, thanks so much. Today's funny video as we head out this weekend is another Drewski drop. Drewski! Taking them to church. Well, actually, not really. Here, I did that one. This one is, yeah, I'll let y'all see it. Folks, I'll see y'all on Sunday. If I'll see y'all again. If not, I'll be back here next Tuesday. Y'all have a good weekend. Peace. If it plays.
I'll let you go with me now.
Rudy, stop talking like that. You ain't going to no big city. Mass ain't gonna let you.
Yeah, I'm going with or without you.
Rudy, stop talking like that. Stop. Hey, what are you niggers doing over there?
We gotta get out of here.
Hey, what are you doing? And
cut! Fantastic! I need more American slave. Okay?
Like struggle.
So, yeah, the struggle.
Sort of like the dialogue, like the back and forth banner.
Absolutely, yes.
See, this role was sort of a bit cheeky. I got a little bit out of my comfort zone, you know. During the filming of this role in this character, I felt oppressed, like an American slave, like a lot of struggle. I studied the art.
A fantastic turnout on the red carpet tonight. I'm just arriving. We have Samson Dubois at the American Guild Awards.
Samson, you look great tonight.
How hard was it for you to change your accent?
As a little boy from Manchester, I think, I struggled a bit with the dialect, right? But to really get into character for this quite astonishing role that I took on, to say the least, I put it all on the line.
All right, 3, 2, 1, action.
I'm telling you, nigga, if you fuck with my shit, I'll kill you, nigga. You'll be fucked up. Fuck.
Nigga, we family.
Nigga, ain't no fucking family in this shit. We not family, nigga. Fuck family.
Hey, cut. That's the one.
That was stunning. That was stunning. Great performance. Working with a good London boy, and I bother him all the time. I had a call with the director. It was quite quintessential to the role, and great character development behind it. I put this fucking bullet in your head, nigga. I laugh because I'm penniless and a bit quite surreal.
Samson Dubois. Samson, yo, who's the girl? Who's the girl?
What's your next movie?
What's your next movie? Yo, do you think your British accent gets you all the black bros in America?
Come on, bro. Are you serious, bro?
Do you think you're better than them?
Better than who, bro?